Hey everyone, it's Boo Radley. In this video, I'll be showing you guys everything you need to know about building an efficient base at Once Human that can withstand and run Stardust purification rounds. Now let's get into it, but first, thank you guys for watching, and please hit that like and subscribe button for more Once Human content. Let's get it. So the first thing that's important is location. When you start off the game, you'll be spawning in around the lower right hand side of the map. I want to say in this area by Broken Delta, and the wetlands. Really, the Dayton wetlands. When you land in, you'll notice very quickly there are a lot, and I want to say a lot of other players that play this game that will make their base immediately within that area to either do some journey tasks, missions, or what have you, or just because they are brand new and they're trying to get a handle on how everything works. I would recommend resisting the temptation to also put up a base near this general area. This whole area is going to be completely populated. It's not going to even net you that much resources, and resources is very important when it comes to where you're planning on putting your base at, right? I ended up moving up a little bit further north, a little bit closer to the, not Deadsville, I want to say closer to the Winding Ridge frontier. It was right around this area where I first put my base. I will teleport there right now to show you guys what it looks like. This area has a lot of very good resources for beginner players. It is right next to a stronghold that does provide a lot of scrap as well as Vanium crystals, which is for tier 3, but you'll be able to reach tier 3 pretty quickly considering all the extra missions and commissions that they give you that will boost your level up really fast. Around this area is a lot of very common but important resources for new players, like a lot of rock and wood, trees galore. The trees here net a lot of wood as well, since they're very big, like these bayonne trees. A great perk about this spot is the farm that is right here. There are a lot of little plots of farmland around these streets. They all have like corn and potato and wheat, which could make very important food. If you have dishes 1 or 2 unlocked in your memetics, if you have corn and wheat, you could create corn soup and the improved stove. And corn soup takes care of both your hunger and your thirst at the same time, condensing the amount of items that you need. If you had a bunch of corn soup, you don't need water as well as edibles if you're not caring much about the buffs that the special food brings you. If you just care about having enough like food to keep your character sustained for long periods of time, corn soup is the way to go. Growing wheat and corn is very important, and this place spawns the food really quickly, so you don't really need to even plant it yourself. I would even argue that this spot spawns the wheat, corn, and potatoes even faster than your own plot of land will be able to, especially in the beginning stages of the game. Unless you have like some really advanced fertilizer, then your crops are going to pretty much grow slower than the rate in which the spawn of the food over here is at. You got a lot of wood, you got a lot of rock, and like I said, there's also a stronghold here. I would recommend always putting up your first base nearby a stronghold. When you have a stronghold right next to your base, you could always just, as soon as you start the game, or whenever you return from a mission, or whenever you have some downtime, you could just run over here and grab a bunch of very important loot, stuff that will help you not only build things, but you can also find blueprints as well as furniture, like random bits of furniture that you could use to decorate your house and make it feel a lot more like a real home than it does just a regular like base, right? When it comes to actually building now, so now that we covered location, let's cover layout. How you're gonna build your house. When you first start the game, you don't have to worry about a super complicated layout or even trying to think of a good build to begin with, period. What you could do is you can go over to the house blueprints in the build mode. So to access this, right, if you don't know, if you're a brand new player, in order to build a base, you have to press B, you right click, and you just choose blueprint, house blueprint over here. And once it opens up this menu, you click on presets. you'll see all the presets that the game gives you in terms of what you could build. You can't really build these two until you have a pickup truck and a tractor trailer. Right now you can only build these, and as you could see, as it goes over to the right, it becomes more big, more complicated of a build, right? I would suggest just going with the survival cottage. It is a basic build. It is as basic as a basic box in Minecraft. If you've ever played Minecraft or any other survival games where you build houses, it's just a box with a special roof on it. However, it is efficient, right? Efficiency is going to be the key when it comes to trying to get the ball rolling as quickly as possible, right? You could go for like a super complicated build and make something really pretty like the pirate ship that I encountered in a recent video. If you haven't seen that video, I'll leave a little link for it in the description, as well as a little box that'll pop up in the corner here. But there's very complicated builds that you can go for. I would not recommend doing that as a brand new player. I would try to just keep it simple, because simple really does go a long way. All right, let's talk about efficiency. So my base, I'm going to show off my base first. I ended up moving my base from the location I was at before over into the desert land, a little bit farther northwest. So if you take a look at the map, this is around the area where I was just at. I moved up this way. There was a specific reason why I did this. I needed to be closer to strongholds that were at a higher level. So when you advance further on into the game, you're going to want to move your territory. And moving your territory is very simple in this game. Thank goodness. I've met a lot of games where moving your territory and base was essentially just taking it apart piece by piece and rebuilding it piece by piece somewhere else. If you want to move your territory, press B on the menu and press Z to move your territory. You'll be able to see a little hologram of your territory, and it'll turn blue wherever you're able to put it. Just keep in mind that when you move your territory, a lot of your defenses that you've probably built around your house, if you've built anything, as well as a few other types of furnitures and bits and pieces, might not make the full transition, but the core of the house will definitely make the full transition. Everything that you will need that's important will. Anything that doesn't make the move or breaks apart for whatever reason will appear in your territory terminal in the vault. So if you walk up to this little thing and press G, it'll pop up in this little area. Not a lot of people know that. I do know that there was a glitch that was happening for people where their territory was disappearing, and sometimes the material that was supposed to go into the vault never made it there. So if it doesn't work for you, that glitch is probably still happening. I'm not sure if they've patched it yet, but as of this making of the video, that's the case. So when you make your base, if you make the survival cottage, you should have a basic square layout on the first floor, kind of similar to what I have here. I ended up adding this little alcove once I got more deviations because I needed an extra spot to put it. So you could always extend the walls out of your square in order to fit a little bit more, or form the square more into like a rectangle, or fit a little bit more as you build on. I like to keep all of the faculties or facilities that you need in order to craft stuff on the first floor. I tried not to put as much furniture down here. This place is not really meant for decoration. It's on the first floor for quick access, so I don't have to run up the stairs in order to make something, or run back down the stairs in order to make something. Everything is here. Once you have a deviation called the strange door, you can make a portal that'll let you go up to a different level in your base that has important stuff in it as well. Quick access. That's a little ahead of myself for where we're at right now. I know that a lot of people might be watching this video or new players, but it's also keep in mind that will be an option for you later on. So try to incorporate features into your base that revolve around that you could use later on once you do unlock things like the strange door. On the second floor, I just decided to make it where my character rests, and also to be able to showcase a lot of the furniture and decorations and things like that that I have gotten. This is where I really make my house feel more like a house. This is not necessary for builds. You could put your bed anywhere that you want to. It doesn't have to be like on the second floor in a special spot. It could be on a roof, it could be outside, it really doesn't matter. This is just something for personal preference and taste. I know having this furniture, you're gonna want to at least put some of it down. It is very interesting. It's pretty cool. It makes your base feel more alive. I know that everyone's gonna be like that, but it's good to keep in mind. The top floor is gonna be important because it's where you're gonna put a lot of like your power essentially, and the Stardust purification machine, which I will say it is more strategic to have it at the top of your house than anywhere else because it's the furthest away from the ground where the enemies will be spawning in. So when the enemies spawn in, they're going to be trying to rush in through any means possible to get into your house to get to the machine. So the further up it is, the harder it will be for the monsters to even get to it. This machine is going to be the cream of the crop in terms of your whole base, right? This is going to be bringing in Starchrome, which is very important. It's going to be the necessary currency in order to upgrade your character's weapons and armor. So it's the whole purpose of building your base the way I'm going to be showing you to build it, is to defend this machine. When you get to a higher level and you get more complicated cortexes of higher levels, the more and more enemies will spawn and the harder they'll be, and the more elites that will be there as well. So to be able to make a base that could house your Stardust purification in a really strategic and secure spot is going to be important. Now let's talk about defenses. To create a good idea of how you should be building your defenses, I would recommend actually running the Stardust Resonant Filter once with just the smallest cortex, a level 1 cortex, and trying to observe on the rooftop of your house which direction the enemies will be spawning and coming in through. So I built this house on a hill for another reason too, to have a good vantage point for any enemies that come in. But what I also found by building it up against this area is that with my location forces all the enemies to fly in through the back entrance of my house, so the backyard essentially. They all come in from this mountain. None of them actually spawn from this direction, that direction, or this direction. I wonder if it has something to do with the road or just the elevation of the house itself. So, but I tested it. They all come in this direction. And because of that, I decided to put most of my defenses in on this side. I have a whole wall that circles the entire base. I made the most of the wall out of actual like house wall and not the fence. I did this for a reason. It's really difficult to place the fences down in a way that will stay aligned with each other. So I found that it's a lot easier to just make a foundation line that goes like a box that goes around the entire base and building from that. But I also ran into another issue because of the way that the house is set on the hill and the elevation of it, that I wasn't really able to continue building foundations out through the backyard area. So the backyard area is where I decided to use the fence. The fence is really good for spots in which you can't really build foundations or a wall around, and it's also good for surrounding the fences that I have right here. So what I have is I have one wall of fence closest to the house, right? And then I have another set of fence that goes around 3 turrets that are on high-rise fortifications. The high-rise fortifications is so that the turrets are actually above the fence and can shoot above the fence, while I have an extra turret in the back in case the front line fence breaks and they start coming through. Inside this little box, I put a bunch of little traps, right? Because when I run the level 30s, sometimes the first fence breaks and they come in. So when they do come in, we have a defense called Gravitational Grip. Gravitational Grip essentially slows all the enemies. It mires them down and makes them run slow, giving the guns a lot more time to fire upon them, and also gives you more time to fire upon them from up above. So as you can see, I also have like these balconies. Usually I just shoot on top of the roof, but you have the balconies as well in case there's like a little area I can't really get to. And there's also a lot of flamethrower traps set along the wall, facing down the wall. So once they start bashing against the wall and they're just sitting right here, they just get blasted with flames. Alright. The spike traps are also in between, somewhere around here. Spike traps are really good. Once they run past through that area, they'll just take damage. With the gravitational grips, they'll take even more damage because it'll take them longer to get out of the spike traps. And for a little bit extra defense, and I feel like this defense is severely underrated, having sandbags just lined up around the whole perimeter of the fence adds a lot of good defense. You'll be hitting those sandbags first for sure. So once those sandbags break, you know, you'll have the extra fence here. It'll take a lot for them to get through this small area. And any stragglers that do end up running around the fence, because it does happen. It does happen where I get a couple guys who run down this way or this way. I have extra turrets lined up on the corners so that whenever they run through, they start getting hit by those turrets, and eventually they'll die. Only rarely have I ever had a guy like break some of these walls and almost make it in, but at this point they still have not made it in. And once you upgrade your structure, like what you could build from wood to stone to concrete, it'll be a lot harder for these guys to break through. Trust me. Like, the wooden fence doesn't really hold a lot of defense, but the wood thick core, like the concrete one, does. So I do recommend trying to spec into better building materials as soon as you can when it comes to building your base, so you could also run StarP dust purification with no issues. Now, what I will say is I do not at the time have turrets or enough defenses set up to automatically take care of all the enemies yet. I have the memetics to be able to do it. I'm just still trying to get a lot of the materials for it. As you will find out, tungsten is really hard to come by if you don't have enough acid for it. Tungsten ores are plentiful, but the acid for it is not, as well as the aluminum. So that is just a plateau of progress that you'll hit eventually, that you'll need to work around. You could find a lot of workarounds through acid specializations. Like the one I have right now lets you turn Stardust into acid, which is very useful. I will now get into how to wire this. There is the power aspect of your defenses once you get to that level of defending. For starters, I want to say the traps, like the gravitational grips and spikes, are the earliest defenses you'll get, and they do not require any electricity whatsoever to run them, which is great. However, they don't provide a lot of defense, and if you do run the Stardust Purification with just that, I would recommend only doing it on level 1, and you will have to be doing a lot of the heavy work for this as well. You'll have to be taking care of a lot of killing when it comes to dispersing the enemies and defending your base. But when it comes time to actually building more complicated traps, like the flamethrower trap, I think is the first trap that you'll unlock that runs on electricity. Was I made a little powerhouse hut to manage the electricity that runs in my house. Once you unlock the electric pylon that's switchable, this will do wonders. I don't even think you need the pylon itself. The pylon's more for putting it on the ground somewhere that can't necessarily be on the ground otherwise, while you could also use just a switchable wall pylon. So it's a wall pylon you can put to the wall and press some buttons. But since my foundations are really high, I can't really put the wall one, so I just do this one instead. What I have here is 2 pylons. One pylon on the left is meant to power all of the facilities and crafting. Everything that is not related to defense is connected to this pylon right here. While everything related to defense, so the turrets and the flame traps, is connected to the pylon on the right. Whenever I need to power the defenses, at the moment I don't have enough generators that are advanced enough to power everything at once, and it will take a very long time for you to get to there. I would recommend doing this first, but whenever I need to power the defenses, I turn off the facilities first, then turn on the defenses, and everything works fine. Before you run the Stardust Purification, I would recommend checking to make sure that everything is on. Just going around in the build menu in free cam, like I am right now in the flight mode, and just highlighting it. You could see in the top left, right now it says insufficient power. If I were to run into the power hut right now and turn off this pylon, turn on this one, or go back to the turrets, you can see that they're all working. So in order to be able to do this really quickly, I know it looks complicated and very overwhelming when it comes to a bunch of wires flying around like this. There is a lot of like methods in order to wire manage, just like in real life. What you could do first, I would recommend once you have your generators put down. I have biomass generators, but new players will probably have these solar panels. It's the first one you get. You put all the solar panels down first, and you run each, like a single cable from each generator down to one pylon, and then another set of wires from each generator to the other pylon, right? So right now I have 5 generators. I could have a max of 6. I need to put an extra one down, but I have 5 generators. So 5 of those generators are connected to one pylon, and the same 5 generators are connected to the other pylon. Once you've connected those generators to the pylon, it becomes a lot more easy to manage how to connect the pylon to your different powered objects. You just go to the pylon and you would run a wire from here over to your station or facility or whatever you need to power, and just connect the wire, right? And you just go back pylon, facility, until you've connected the wires necessary to power all your facilities, right? You will have to press the button to turn it on once you put the pylon down. So don't worry if it's not working after you've already put it down. Make sure you run to the pylon and press the button to actually activate it, so you can make sure all that power is flowing through. And you do the same exact thing for your defenses. So you go to each defense, go to each turret, you grab a wire, you run it to the pylon meant for the turrets and defenses, and just switch back and forth between both of them as necessary. Another thing to note when it comes to connecting wires, you could daisy chain wires. Not a lot of people know this. You don't have to connect each and every wire to the pylon directly. You could connect wires to other facilities. So for example, you could run a wire from the electric furnace to a synthesis bench, and then from the synthesis bench to the pylon, and then from the pylon to the generator. It will still work. Every single object that's connected to each other to that daisy chain will have the power funnel through it and power it as well. And another thing to note for cable management are these little underrated, I want to say, terminals, right? These terminals can be connected. You can have wall terminals, ceiling terminals, and floor terminals. You can connect them to any part of the house that you want to. So if you have a wire that's just flying through your walls, like through your room, and it's really bothering you, you could just connect a terminal to the wall or to another spot nearby to make sure that the wire doesn't go in that direction, right? Makes things a lot easier. I have that set up right here with one of the shotgun turret. So I didn't want the shotgun turret wire just like flying through the house into the terminal up there. So instead I just had a non-switchable pylon, like a regular pylon right here, bounce into this wall and then into the pylon that powers the switchable one. Another thing to note is I have a little bit of defenses in the front in case something, happens. The front door is usually always open, for me at least. I usually have it open so I could just easily go through, as well as this little gap in the wall. I close it up as soon as I run a Stardust purification round, just in case. You could always just easily get into build mode and just throw up like a wooden wall really fast in order to make things work. It's very useful. So another thing I wanted to talk about briefly when it comes to efficiency, and this is another thing to notice, what rainwater collection and just water collection in general when it comes to your base. Rainwater collection in the early areas is very easy. The reason why I recommended that area is it just rains all the fucking time. You could just put up a regular rainwater collector, which you unlock very early in the game. It'll passively collect a ton of it. Once you get the compact water filter, you'll be able to filter a lot of that rainwater very easily. The rainwater is dirty. You have to pass it through some type of purifier or boil it in order to be able to drink it and use it for growing crops. You have to also make sure that the water purifier is up on top of the roof somewhere, and that your filter is somewhere on the mid-level, and that your water tank is somewhere on the floor, right? You have to have gravity in order to push the water downwards through all the pipes, I guess, that you're going to be running. These blue pipes, these little blue plumbing pipes, it shows that the water's flowing through them. Right now, where I'm at, I'm in the desert. It doesn't rain at all. It actually doesn't rain at all out here. So I have to use water pumps. That's something that you'll be unlocking later on down the tree. So you decide to move your base somewhere outside of the initial area somewhere where rainfall doesn't happen as much or at all, you're going to need groundwater pumps. This pulls water out of the ground, and the same exact concept applies when it comes to gravity, when it comes to these water pumps, unless you've unlocked a special pump that pushes the water, which is later on in the mimicry. However, right now I don't have that, so I have the pump set up in a way where it's above the filter just enough for it to pass through, and the filters are still above the water tank, which is in this little hut. I've built walls around all of my little extra facilities that are outside to protect it from when I run Stardust resonant filters, right? Because I've had cases where the long range enemies that shoot like bullets and little bursts of, I don't know, balls of energy and ectoplasm, they tend to blow up a lot of my water pumps and stuff, and I had to keep replacing them. But it hasn't happened since I put the walls around them. Just keep that in mind when you place this later on as well. Keep it somewhere where it's not going to be in the way as much, as well as not explode whenever you do the Stardust resonant filters. I do have another pipe that runs over here to my irrigation. The same thing applies with gravity to your irrigation facilities. Once you've unlocked that, you have to have it lower than the water tank so it could feed the water into it properly. Another thing to note is that the automatic water irrigation systems, they pull the purified water first. I don't even think they pull dirty water. I'm not even sure if it works like that. I think it detects the purified water versus the dirty water, and it'll filter that out automatically as well. Water irrigation facility has a setting that you could change that affects how much water gets pumped out of it. So I've noticed that crops, they need a certain level of water. If you overwater it, it'll grow really slow, and if you don't water it enough, it's not going to grow at all. So if there's like a very good Goldilocks zone of what type of water or how much water you should be putting onto your crops, it'll tell you when you go to plant it. That's why I stick to growing the same amount of shit around the same area, because it just makes it a lot easier when it comes to keeping the water irrigation at the right level for everything. I have a very small plot of land right here for food. I don't need too much other than just a bit of wheat and corn to make those corn soup. There's a lot of goats and other types of animals around nearby that I could just hunt and cook food for. If you need to figure out how to dry your food, once you've unlocked the meat dryer, salt is acquirable through seawater, which is closer to the east side of the map. And there's a few other ways to obtain salt as well. I'll get into that in another video. So now let's talk about passive ore collecting as well, real quick. And also passive logging. Once you've unlocked the aluminum diggy boy, as well as the logging beaver, you'll passively collect logs and different types of ore. Diggy boy only collects ores that it's in the local area. So if you only see like tin, copper, and iron, it's only going to collect that. If you want tungsten, if you want aluminum or anything that's more complicated, you have to be located in a territory that has that. Another thing to note with water, if you are located near a body of water, having the water there for just water collection as well as power, you could build a hydraulic generator at some point that'll take the movement of the water from the body of water and power your house that way. It does provide a lot more power than the solar generators as well as a biomass generator. So that's another thing to keep in mind as well. So to recap, you have to keep in mind when it comes to building your location, the layout of your building to maximize your efficiency, maximizing efficiency with your build, as well as keeping in mind future enhancements for your base and renovations that you might want to do. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you find this video very helpful. I'll be posting more Once Human content onto this channel every day, and I'll be streaming to my Twitch channel at boo_rally_xx. I'll be posting those links in the description as well. Please like, subscribe, and comment if you can. And thank you for watching. Have a good one.